The neon lights of Albuquerque flickered like dying embers against the desert night, buzzing over the cracked windows of a roadside diner that smelled of burnt coffee and bleach. It was past midnight when Miguel Torres walked in. His boots heavy with desert dust, his leather jacket still damp with blood that wasn't his. Behind the counter, Evan Price flipped another patty on the greasy grill. He didn't look up. Not right away. He'd seen men like Miguel before. Men with gold watches, loud laughter, and the kind of eyes that never slept. But there was something different about this one. Something slower. Calculated. Like he already knew the ending to a story no one else had started. Miguel sat at the far end of the counter, drumming his fingers on the chipped surface. "You still make that chili burger with the green sauce?" Evan turned, spatula in hand. "Depends who's asking." Miguel smirked. "Someone who's been watching you cook for 3 weeks." The room froze. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Evan's hand twitched on the spatula. He could feel the pulse at his neck hammering. "That's supposed to scare me." Miguel leaned forward. "No. Suppose it's meant to impress you." He placed a small, worn-out book on the counter, its cover a mess of faded red and gold characters, the title written entirely in Mandarin. "Read this," he said. "And I'll make you rich." Evan stared at the book. "You serious?" Miguel's grin widened. "Dead serious." The cook wiped his hands on his apron. His heartbeat too loud. "What's in it?" Miguel's tone turned soft, almost reverent. "A recipe. That's all." Miguel's gaze darkened. "Not just a recipe. Method. It's been lost for 70 years. The man who wrote it cooked for the Shanghai underworld before World War II. He believed flavors could change the mind, influence loyalty, break fear." Evan frowned. "You're talking like a priest, man." Miguel chuckled, low and dangerous. "I'm talking like a businessman. You make food that touches the soul, right? Well, imagine making food that controls it." Evan picked up the book carefully, like it might burn him. The pages smelled of dust and incense, handwritten in delicate brushstrokes. He couldn't read a word. But something about it, the care, the strange rhythm of the ink, made his skin crawl. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you don't belong anywhere," Miguel said. "You got no wife, no debts, no family. Just a grill and a past you don't talk about." Evan's jaw clenched. "You've been asking about me." Miguel nodded. "Only enough to know you were the best cook at the state prison before you got out early." The air turned heavy. "Who told you that?" Miguel didn't answer. He simply leaned back, reached into his jacket, and tossed a roll of $100 bills onto the counter. "I need you to translate that book, cook what's inside and serve it to me. You do it right, you'll never cook another burger in this shithole again." Evan stared at the money, then at the book. "You want me to cook something I can't even read?" Miguel smiled thinly. "I already have someone who can read it. You just follow orders." Evan hesitated, but the smell of grease and exhaustion pressed in. The broken jukebox, the empty booths, the silence of a life going nowhere. He grabbed the book. "I'll do it." Miguel's grin was a flicker of approval. "Good. Tomorrow night. My place. 11 p.m. Don't be late." As he turned to leave, the bell above the diner door jingled. A hollow, lonely sound. Evan stood there, the book in his hands, feeling the weight of something ancient and wrong pressing against his chest. That night, back in his tiny apartment off Central Avenue, he couldn't sleep. The book lay open on the counter beside an old lamp, its light trembling over the pages. The characters seemed to shift when he looked too long, as if they were breathing. He searched online for hours, trying to match the symbols, but nothing came close. Finally, in desperation, he posted a picture of one page on an obscure culinary forum under a fake name. Within minutes, a user from Boston replied, "Do not read this aloud. It's not a cookbook." Evan froze. He typed back, "Then what is it?" The reply came seconds later. "It's a formula. The last man who tried to cook it disappeared in 1989. He slammed his laptop shut. His pulse pounded in his ears. Outside, the wind kicked up sand and the faint sound of distant sirens echoed over the desert. At exactly 2:17 a.m., there was a knock at his door. 3 slow taps. He didn't move. Then a voice, low, calm, and unmistakable, came through the wood. "I told you not to post anything, Evan." He froze. 'Twas Miguel. "How?" "Open the door." Evan backed away. "How the hell did you?" "Open it, or I'll do it for you." Evan's mind raced. He grabbed the book and shoved it under the mattress. His hands were trembling as he reached for the doorknob. When he opened it, Miguel stood there, a cigarette glowing between his fingers, eyes like dark glass. "You don't listen well," he said softly. Evan tried to steady his voice. "You're watching me." Miguel flicked ash onto the carpet. "I told you this isn't just about cooking. You post one picture of that book, and 3 people notice. One of them already tried to sell a copy last year. He's dead now." Evan swallowed. "You're insane." Miguel stepped closer, the smoke curling around his face. "Maybe. But you still want to know what's in those pages, don't you?" Silence. Evan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The hunger in his chest said everything. Miguel smiled faintly, tapped his temple and whispered, "It's not about taste, Evan. It's about power." Then he turned and walked away into the neon rain, leaving only the faint smell of tobacco and something darker behind. Evan stood at the doorway long after he was gone, the city lights blurring through the thin curtain of drizzle. He went back inside, sat on the edge of his bed, and stared at the mattress where the book was hidden. His hands were shaking. The words from that online message echoed in his head. "It's not a cookbook." And still, beneath the fear, he could feel something else rising inside him. Curiosity, hunger, strange, dangerous excitement. He reached under the mattress and pulled the book out again. Then, whispering under his breath, he began to sound out the first line, each syllable strange and foreign, burning on his tongue like smoke. The air in the room shifted. The light from the lamp flickered once, twice, then went out. And in the darkness, something whispered back. Morning came slow and colorless over Albuquerque. The sun rose pale behind a veil of desert haze, casting long shadows across Central Avenue. The diner's neon sign still buzzed weakly in the daylight. Evan's Diner, though the paint on the letters had peeled so much that it just read E. Ann's. Evan stood behind the counter, staring at the grill as if it could explain what had happened the night before. The whisper he'd heard, that soft shifting murmur in the dark, had faded with dawn, but its echo still crawled under his skin. He barely noticed the bell above the door until a woman's voice broke the silence. "Coffee, black. And something sweet if you've got it." Evan looked up. She was standing by the counter, sunlight catching in her hair, chestnut brown tied loose with strands falling across her cheek. Her name tag read Dr. Riley Quinn, from the University of New Mexico. Her eyes were sharp, observant, the kind that catalog every detail and file it away. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. He poured the coffee automatically. "Didn't. Rough night." He hesitated. "You could say that." She smiled lightly. "You're not the only one. I've been translating ancient trade documents since 3 in the morning." Evan froze. "You translate Chinese?" "Among other things." She took a sip of coffee, studying him over the rim of the cup. "Why?" He wiped his hands on a rag. "Just curious." Riley tilted her head, sensing something behind the word. "Curious about what?" Evan thought fast. "I found an old cookbook. Thought it might be Chinese. Don't know what it says." Her eyes lit up. "That sounds fun. You want me to take a look?" He didn't answer immediately. Something about her, the ease in her voice, the warmth in her eyes, felt dangerous, not because she was unkind, but because she seemed honest. Too honest for the world he'd stepped into. "Maybe," he said finally. "Later. Suit yourself." She smiled again, leaving a 5 on the counter. You should get some rest, cook. You look haunted. When she left, the diner felt colder. Evan's reflection stared back from the stainless steel grill. Pale, exhausted, and changing. He looked older somehow. Like he'd aged 10 years overnight. At noon, a black SUV pulled up outside. Miguel stepped out, wearing a pressed white shirt and dark sunglasses that reflected the world like a mirror. 2 men followed him, both armed. Evan's chest tightened. Miguel walked in as if he owned the place. "Morning, chef." Evan didn't answer. "You read?" Miguel asked quietly. Evan nodded once. "Just the first line." Miguel's lips curved into a knowing smile. "And it spoke to me." Miguel's expression hardened. "What did it say?" "I don't know. I don't speak Chinese." "Then what did you hear?" Evan hesitated. The truth sounded insane. "A whisper." Miguel studied him for a moment, then said softly, "Good. That means it's working." Evan frowned. "Working? You woke it," Miguel said. "The book is not ink and paper. It's alive in a way. It wants to be understood." Evan stared at him. "You're talking like this thing is magic." Miguel smirked. "Not magic. Science. Language older than science itself." He reached into his pocket and slid a folded piece of paper across the counter. "Tonight, my house. I'll have my translator there. Bring your knives." "What are we cooking?" Miguel leaned closer. "Faith." And then he was gone. That night, the desert wind howled across the open plains. Evan arrived at a sprawling adobe mansion just outside the city limits, guarded by 2 men with rifles. Inside, the air smelled of sandalwood and smoke. Miguel waited in the kitchen, a cathedral of marble and chrome, with a woman sitting beside him. She was in her 40s, elegant, her posture straight and still. "This is Li Mei," Miguel said. "She's from Beijing. She'll translate for you." Li Mei opened the book with trembling fingers. She didn't meet Evan's eyes. "You should know," she said softly. "This is not meant to be read by men like us." Evan frowned. Then who was it meant for? She didn't answer. She began translating, her voice barely above a whisper. "The first dish is called the Red Silence. It must be cooked at night. No noise. No metal should touch the ingredients." Evan blinked. "What ingredients?" Miguel handed him a list written in Mandarin. Li Mei translated each word slowly. "Lotus seed, pork blood, crushed saffron and," she paused, her voice breaking, "a drop of the cook's own blood." Evan laughed nervously. "You're kidding." Miguel didn't blink. "Do it." The kitchen lights dimmed. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. Evan realized Miguel had cut the power. Only the moonlight through the tall windows remained, cold and blue. His hands trembled as he began. Each movement felt guided, like invisible strings tugging his wrists. He sliced, stirred, and bled into the sauce without knowing why. The air thickened with a strange metallic scent. Li Mei whispered as she translated, voice shaking. "The one who consumes the red silence shall be bound by the cook's will." When the dish was done, the surface shimmered faintly, almost pulsing. Miguel smiled, took a spoonful and tasted it. Then he froze. His pupils dilated. His breath hitched. And for a long moment no one spoke. Finally Miguel's voice came low and trembling. "It works." Evan stepped back. "What did you feel?" Miguel looked at him with wild eyes. "You? What do you mean?" Miguel grinned slowly. "I heard your thoughts." Evan's heart stopped. "That's impossible." Miguel laughed, unsteady but exhilarated. "You doubted me. You thought I was insane. You pitied me. I heard it all." He grabbed Evan by the shoulders. "You don't understand, chef. We can control anyone with this. Politicians, rivals, entire cities if we want. You'll cook, I'll feed them, and together we'll own the world." Evan tore himself free. "You're out of your mind." But Miguel's laughter filled the kitchen, echoing off the walls. "You think you have a choice now. That book chose you the moment you opened it." Li Mei's eyes were wet. He's right, she whispered. It never leaves the one who reads it. Evan stared at her, horror settling like ice in his chest. Then how do I stop it? Li Mei looked down at the open pages, the ink glistening under the moonlight like fresh blood. You don't. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the glass. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the desert. Evan grabbed the book from the counter, clutching it to his chest. I'm done. You can keep your money. Miguel's voice followed him as he stormed toward the door. Soft, mocking, deadly. You'll be back. You'll cook again. Because it's already inside you. Evan didn't look back. He drove into the night, the city lights blurring through the windshield as the storm broke open above him. Rain hammered the car roof. His vision blurred. The whisper returned, faint, familiar, curling around his mind like smoke. He realized with dawning terror that it wasn't coming from the book this time. It was coming from inside him. The storm didn't stop until dawn. When the first light broke over the New Mexico desert, the city looked washed out, pale, hollow, as if the night had taken something from it. Evan sat parked outside his apartment, gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles had gone white. The whisper in his head hadn't left. It wasn't a sound exactly, more like a vibration under his skin, a murmur that lived in his pulse. He hadn't slept, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Miguel's face when he'd tasted the dish, the hunger, the awe, the madness. And worse, he'd felt something too. When Miguel ate that spoonful, a flicker had passed through Evan's chest like static. For 1 second, he'd felt Miguel's heartbeat echo inside his own. He thought he was losing his mind. By mid-morning he walked to the university campus, his jacket still damp from the night. He needed answers, and only one person came to mind. Riley Quinn. He found her in a small office lined with books and dusty artifacts, a half-eaten bagel beside a tower of translation papers. She looked up, startled, when she saw him in the doorway. Evan, you look worse than yesterday. I need your help, he said quietly. Her expression softened. Come in. He placed the book on her desk. The cover looked different now. Darker, as if the ink had thickened overnight. Riley reached for it, but he stopped her. Careful. It's not normal. She raised an eyebrow. You're scaring me already. He exhaled. You said you translate Chinese. Can you read a few lines of this? Just tell me what it is. Riley flipped carefully through the pages. Her brow furrowed. These characters are ancient. Pre-modern. This isn't Mandarin. It's a hybrid of classical script and something else. It's like it's trying to hide meaning in plain sight. Evan nodded slowly. It's supposed to be a recipe. She frowned. No, it's a ritual. See here, this character looks like boil, but it's written with the radical for soul. That's deliberate. This isn't food. It's invocation. He swallowed hard. That makes sense. Evan, what happened? He told her everything. The cartel, Miguel, the translation, the cooking, the whisper, the blood. He spoke quickly, his voice trembling, as if saying it out loud might make it sound ridiculous enough to dismiss. But Riley didn't laugh. She just stared at him, pale and silent. Who translated it for you? She finally asked. A woman named Li Mei. Riley's eyes widened. That name sounds familiar. She turned to her computer and started typing. After a moment, her face drained of color. Evan. She was reported missing in 2011. From Los Angeles. She was a linguist, worked with historical documents from Shanghai. He felt his chest tighten. She's alive. I saw her. Riley shook her head. Maybe you saw what's left of her. A chill slid down his spine. She looked up at him, eyes fierce. You have to destroy this book. He almost laughed. You think I didn't try? It doesn't burn. I threw it into the desert last night. It was back on my kitchen table this morning. Riley stared at the cover again, whispering as if afraid it could hear her. Then it's bound to you. He rubbed his temples. What does that mean? It means, she said softly, if it's connected to you, the more you resist it, the more it consumes you. The whisper in his head deepened, like a wave under his thoughts. He flinched. Riley noticed. What's happening? It's talking again. What's it saying? He shook his head. Not words. Just a hunger. Riley reached for his hand. Her touch was warm, grounding. Evan, listen to me. You're not crazy. You're being manipulated by something ancient. Maybe spiritual, maybe chemical. But there's always a way to fight it. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment the noise in his head dimmed. The world steadied. Then her office phone rang. Riley jumped. Sorry. She answered it quickly, frowning as she listened. Who is this? No, he's not. Wait, how did you get this number? Her eyes met his. Fear. She slammed the phone down. It was him. Miguel. She nodded. He said, tell the cook dinner's in 2 days. Evan's stomach turned. How does he know where I am? Riley's voice trembled. Because he's not just watching you. He's connected to you. That night, Evan sat in his apartment with all the lights off, staring at the book. It lay open on his counter, its pages fluttering though there was no wind. He whispered to himself, I won't do it. The whisper came back. You already have. He jerked backward, heart hammering. The pages turned on their own, stopping at a section titled, in English this time impossibly, The Second Course. Beneath it a single line, to feed another is to bind them. To feed yourself is to become. He felt a cold, irresistible urge to cook. His hands moved before his mind could stop them. He chopped onions, cracked eggs, poured oil, every action guided by something unseen. The smell that filled the room was intoxicating, rich, sweet, metallic. He lifted a spoon, trembling. The whisper grew louder. No, he whispered back. No. But his hand disobeyed. He tasted it. For a heartbeat, everything was light, color, sensation. He saw flashes of a foreign kitchen. Men in silk robes, smoke curling from bronze pots, red banners with black ink dripping down. He saw blood on the floor. Screams. Fire. Then silence. He was back in his apartment. The dish was gone. His reflection in the microwave door was not his own. His eyes looked darker, older. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text. You took the second step. Now you're mine, chef. He threw the phone across the room, breath ragged. The whisper returned, but now it was his own voice. He realized with horror that he could hear Miguel's heartbeat again. Faint, distant, but inside him. And beneath it, another pulse. Riley's. He looked at the window. Across the street, through the curtains of her lit office, Riley was working late. She rubbed her temples, looking tired. Then she froze, looked up, and her eyes went wide. She could feel him, watching. And in that moment, Evan understood the book's real curse. Didn't just teach cooking. It connected every soul who tasted what it created. Somewhere far away, Miguel smiled. And whispered into the wind. Good boy. The next 48 hours bled together in fevered fragments. No sleep, no peace, no silence. Evan could feel Miguel everywhere. In his heartbeat. In the rhythm of his breath. When he closed his eyes, Miguel's laughter drifted through his skull like static. When he opened them, the shadows in his apartment twitched with motion that wasn't there. He had locked the book in a drawer, wrapped in towels and duct tape, but it didn't matter. Its voice, his voice, kept whispering through the walls, cook, feed, become. He stopped showing up at the diner. Customers came, saw the lights off and left. Only Riley didn't. On the third night she knocked on his door. He hesitated before opening. He looked hollow, pale, eyes ringed in sleepless bruises. His hands shook even when he tried to hide it. Riley's gaze softened. Evan, you're scaring me. You shouldn't be here. I found something, she said, stepping past him. About the book. He shut the door behind her. Go on. She set her phone on the table and showed him an image. an old black-and-white photo from 1940s Shanghai. A man stood in a smoky kitchen, surrounded by soldiers. He was smiling, holding the same red and gold book. The caption beneath read, Dr. Wei Lian, court chef, executed for mass poisoning 1942. The cookbook was confiscated after the war, Riley said, her voice low. The CIA archived it under cultural artifacts, but it disappeared from their vaults in 1989, same year that translator you mentioned vanished. Evan sat down slowly. His pulse thudded in his ears. So Miguel got it from them. Probably. Or from someone who stole it. Riley paused. Evan, the original title of this text wasn't the Book of Recipes. Translates to the Communion of Fire. It wasn't meant for food. It was meant for control, a ritual of consumption. Those who ate became part of the cook's will. He nodded weakly. I know. I felt it. Riley hesitated. Then you know what it means. He looked up, exhausted. I can hear him. Her eyes widened. Miguel. He's in me. I can hear his thoughts, his breath. I think he can hear mine too. A cold wind slipped through the cracked window. Riley reached out, resting a hand on his arm. Then we have to break the link. How? She took a deep breath. By reversing the ritual. The text mentions a counterrite, an act of cleansing fire. But it requires one thing. What? The same ingredients used to bind it. Plus one new element. Blood from the one who started it. Evan's voice dropped. Miguel. She nodded. We have to find him. They left that night. Riley drove, her beat-up Ford slicing through the desert highway under a bruised sky. Thunder rolled in the distance, low and angry. Evan stared out the window, feeling the whisper in his chest grow louder with every passing mile. He knows we're coming, he muttered. I don't care, Riley said, her voice steady. We're ending this. By the time they reached Miguel's estate, the rain had started again. Sheets of it hammering the windshield, the mansion's lights flickering behind a curtain of storm. The front gates hung open. No guards. No sound. Evan's breath caught. Something's wrong. They stepped inside. The air smelled of smoke and metal, that same copper tang that haunted his memory. The hallways were dark except for the faint red glow bleeding from the kitchen at the far end. When they entered, they froze. Miguel stood at the stove, cooking. Alone. His white shirt was streaked with something dark. The book lay open beside him, its pages soaked and wrinkled, symbols pulsing faintly with a red light that seemed to breathe. He didn't look up. You came back, he said softly. Miguel, Evan said, his voice breaking. It has to stop. Miguel chuckled. It's just beginning. He turned, and for the first time Evan saw his eyes. Black, reflective like polished stone. You feel it too, don't you? The hunger. The connection. I feel you, Evan said. Inside my head. Because you invited me. Miguel lifted a spoon of crimson sauce to his lips. You tasted the second course. You became part of the communion. You can't run from that. Riley stepped forward. There's a way to reverse it. We burn it, and your blood ends the spell. Miguel smiled, slow and cold. And why would I ever end perfection? Evan took a step closer. Because it's killing us. Miguel tilted his head. Killing. Well, transforming. Don't you see? We can feel what others feel. Command what they think. It's evolution. You're insane. Miguel's grin widened. Am I? You came back, chef. You wanted to. And suddenly Evan realized Miguel was right. Deep beneath the fear, the nausea, there was a pulse of something else. Desire. Power. The whisper in his head wasn't just Miguel anymore. It was himself. Riley's voice cut through it. Evan, listen to me. You're not him. You can still choose. Miguel extended his hand. Or you can choose me. The rain outside hammered louder. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in white. Evan's pulse raced. Two voices screamed in his skull, one pleading, one commanding. He stepped between them, trembling. If this ends tonight, then it ends with me. He reached for the pot on the stove and lifted it. The liquid inside shimmered like molten gold. Miguel's eyes widened. Don't! Evan threw it into the fire. The explosion of heat was instant. Flames roared up the chimney, spreading along the marble walls. The book caught fire, but instead of burning, it bled light, the symbols crawling across its pages like living veins. Miguel screamed, not in pain but fury. You fool! You've bound it to yourself. Evan staggered back as the light swallowed the room. Riley grabbed his arm. Evan! What's happening? He looked at her, eyes glowing faintly now, veins tracing red under his skin. Run! I'm not leaving you. He smiled weakly. You have to. The floor split. Heat poured upward. The whisper became a roar. Thousands of voices overlapping. Evan pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his heart stutter and change. Miguel lunged at him through the fire, but Evan caught his wrist. Their eyes locked, two mirrors reflecting the same madness. And then, with one final surge of strength, Evan pulled Miguel into the flames. Their screams blended into one. The fire consumed the kitchen, the mansion, the night. Riley stumbled out into the rain, coughing, her body shaking. Behind her, the house burned like a beacon in the storm, red and gold, just like the book's cover. She turned once, whispering into the wind. Evan! But there was no answer. Only fire. 3 days later, the fire department found nothing but ash. No bodies. No remains. The local paper called it an unexplained gas explosion. Riley didn't speak to reporters. She left the city that night, driving north toward Santa Fe, trying to convince herself it was over. But every time she closed her eyes, she heard faint whispers behind her thoughts, and smelled the faint trace of smoke. And somewhere miles away, in a quiet roadside diner that hadn't been open in weeks, a single neon letter flickered back to life. Ian's. Inside, someone stood behind the counter, cooking. The air smelled of spice and blood and rain. And when the pan hissed, a soft voice murmured, not one but two. Feed. Become. The diner reopened 2 weeks after the fire. No one in Albuquerque remembered when or how. One day it was boarded shut, charred black from years of neglect. The next, the windows gleamed like mirrors, and the neon sign buzzed again in the dark. Evan's Diner, whole once more, glowing red and gold like fresh blood. Locals whispered that someone bought the place. Others said it just woke up. Riley Quinn didn't believe rumors. Not anymore. She hadn't slept properly since the night of the fire. Every dream was flame and whispers. Every morning, her clothes smelled faintly of smoke. And sometimes when she walked past the mirror, she swore she saw someone standing behind her. A shadow with familiar eyes. She told herself she was just tired. That grief could trick the mind. But when she saw the news about the diner reopening, her chest went hollow. It was past midnight when she parked across the street, rain pattering softly on her windshield. The windows glowed warmly inside. A figure moved behind the counter, tall and deliberate, flipping something on the grill. She whispered to the darkness, "No. It can't be." But deep down she already knew. She crossed the street, pushed open the door. The bell above it chimed, the same lonely sound she remembered. The smell hit her first. Spice, smoke, something metallic underneath. Her heart began to race. The man behind the counter turned slowly. Evan. He looked alive, whole, too whole. His skin was unscarred. His eyes sharp, glowing faintly beneath the low fluorescent light. His voice was quiet, careful, almost human. "Hi, Riley." She froze, the word catching in her throat. You're alive." He smiled faintly. "In a way." Her pulse quickened. "What happened that night?" He glanced at the sizzling pan. "I ended it. Or thought I did. Miguel's gone." "Gone?" Evan looked up, his gaze steady. "Not dead. Not alive. Just inside." Riley took a step closer, eyes flicking to his hands. Steady, graceful, but not quite his. You pulled him into the fire. I had to, he said softly. It was the only way to contain it. The book wouldn't die, Riley. It needed a vessel. So I gave it one. Her stomach turned. You mean you? He nodded once. Now it's mine to control. The whispers stopped screaming after a while. They listen. The room was silent except for the hiss of the grill. You shouldn't be here, he said gently. It's not safe. She shook her head. Neither are you. He smiled, a flicker of warmth, or maybe something pretending to be. Maybe not. But look around. People come here now. They eat. They smile. They feel better. Riley's eyes narrowed. You've been cooking from it again. Evan's hand froze over the spatula. He didn't answer. What are you feeding them? He sighed. Something pure. Something clean. I changed the recipes. Took the darkness out. I think. Riley took a slow step forward. You think? He looked up at her, eyes glinting gold in the dim light. You of all people should understand. You can't destroy language. You can only rewrite it. She shook her head. You're playing God. Maybe, he said. But maybe God's been hungry for a long time. For a long moment neither spoke. Rain drummed softly against the window. Riley finally said, You don't have to carry this. Evan's jaw tightened. If I stop, it'll find someone else. Someone like Miguel. Someone worse. So you're what? A guardian now. He looked past her to the empty booths, the flickering neon reflection in the glass. Maybe that's what redemption looks like. Watching the fire so it doesn't spread again. Riley's throat ached. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe this version of him. Calm, controlled, gentle, wasn't a mask. But as she looked closer, she noticed it. Behind his eyes, the faint shimmer of another presence. Watching. Waiting. You said Miguel's gone, she whispered. But I can feel him. Evan didn't deny it. Sometimes, he said, I hear him in the quiet. When I cook. When I dream. But I keep him buried. Riley's hand trembled. And what happens when you can't? He smiled, tired and sad. Then you'll know what to do. She stared at him. I can't kill you. His eyes softened. You already did. The man you knew burned in that fire. What's left of me is just the echo. Tears welled in her eyes. Then why did you call me here? Because I wanted you to taste it. He slid a small plate across the counter. A single dish. Delicate, glistening in the dim light. Steam rose from it, carrying a scent that felt like memory. Warmth, rain, comfort. Riley's voice broke. Evan, no. It's not a curse, he whispered. It's a cure. My own recipe. If it works, it'll silence the book forever. But I can't test it myself. She looked down at the food, trembling. What if it kills me? His eyes were glassy now, pleading. Then at least one of us will be free. For a long time, all she could hear was the rain. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lifted the spoon. The moment the food touched her lips, the lights flickered. Her breath caught. The world tilted. She saw flashes, Evan in the fire screaming Miguel's name, the book dissolving into light, the words burning into his skin like tattoos. And then something else. Evan standing alone in a kitchen of white light, smiling as he handed her the plate. I told you, his voice whispered through the vision. It's not about control. It's about release. When she opened her eyes, the diner was empty. The grill was cold. The lights were off. The neon sign outside had gone dark, a faint trail of smoke curling from its broken glass. Evan was gone. Only the book remained on the counter, open to a final page that hadn't been there before. It was written in English, and it said, Every fire leaves a taste in the air. And every cook must eat what he creates. Beneath the words, the ink shimmered faintly, then dissolved into nothing. Riley stood there for a long time, staring at the empty page, the quiet room. Then she whispered to the silence, Goodbye, chef. Outside, dawn crept over the horizon. The rain had stopped. The air smelled faintly of spice and smoke, but softer now, almost sweet. And in that fragile stillness, somewhere deep in the city's pulse, the whispers finally went quiet.